Okay, today is March 17th, and we are doing a hand analysis reading. So, let me tell you a little about hand analysis before I begin. So what is hand analysis? Basically, it's going to weave the ancient art of palmistry with dermatoglyphics. Where did my video of you go? There you are. Okay. So it's going to weave together these kind of two different things. One's palmistry and one's dermatoglyphics. One deals with the line formations and the hand shape, and the other deals with the fingerprints, which are unchanging. So when you get your palms read, that's more looking at the personality, whereas the fingerprints is like your soul psychology. So it's kind of like what you came here to be, to do, the lessons you came here to learn, the karma and stuff like that, the overall theme of your life. So, knowing your life purpose can be very important in helping you kind of know how your life is kind of, how you've lived your life, and, what is how you can kind of shape that, knowing your life purpose, your life lesson, and the theme of your life, and other challenge markers as well as gift markers. So life purpose is always an ongoing process. So it's never like, I'm going to get here and it's going to be all perfect. And knowing your life purpose is not about getting yourself into the marketplace or like that. This is about like soul fulfillment. So it's the state of consciousness that your soul craves to inhabit. So I'm going to look at your life purpose, what you came here to be and to do, and to really, this consciousness to inhabit. And the life lesson is the other half of this picture, because you can't live your life purpose without your life lesson. Your life lesson is kind of like the shadow part of yourself, or the part of yourself that you came here to really work on. And in order to step up in your life purpose, you have to work on the life lesson. So I always think about the life lesson as like, if you go down a hallway of mirrors and each mirror is like, tell me something about myself that I don't want to know. The truth mirror, it's like you go down to the last mirror and then it's the mirror after that. That's your life lesson. So it's always like an onion. It's always like going deeper into something. Something is never complete. It's just you're moving on to the next level of with that life lesson or life purpose. And then the overall theme, which is your school, is kind of like the overall backdrop from which your life purpose and life lesson kind of take place. So I'm looking at your handprints right now, and these are actually the handprints that I've had from a while ago.
Yeah, that was fun.
Yeah, so
My hand got super inked.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, we got those.
My hand was black.
It was, and I will post these so you could see. You can't see right now, but I actually posted it on orange paper. Believe it or not. So you will be the first person with orange paper with your handprints. And so I'm looking at your fingerprints. So on the right hand, you have a composite, whirl, and then an advanced loop. And on the left hand, you have an arch loop, and then a low-ranking whirl, low-ranking whirl, low-ranking whirl, and then a loose composite. You do not need to know what those mean. But I'm just saying it just in case you want to look back at your reading. And you also have a beautiful whirl in the moon. Actually, I have used your whirl in the moon as in some of my blogs just because it's so textbook perfect. So whirl in the moon is a dermatoglyphic. It's a fingerprint that's in the moon area of the hand. So it's like the thumb can't get to it because it has to do with spirituality and intuition and the emotional realm, the dream world. So it's actually pretty, and I could see it. It's like a bullseye in your hand. So, and also the left hand, you also have a teardrop. I also want to say that. There's like a, left hand has a dermatoglyphic, and I don't know if you were aware of that, but I noticed it this time. So, yeah. So I'm going to talk about the overall hand shape. So the overall hand shape is kind of like the outline of your personality. So on the left hand, you're more water. Water is all about the emotions, intuition, spirituality, sensitivity, and also, water takes the shape of the container. So it's also very fluid as far as, being able to adapt to situations. Sometimes agreements, they can kind of be wishy-washy with agreements, and they can kind of be the martyr, taking on a lot of responsibility. And relationships are at the key of someone with a water hand. Relationships are very important. So if relationships are not working, it will grit on their nerves. It's like relationships are kind of central for the water-handed person. Now, on the right hand, it's a little bit different. You actually have water, but you also have kind of there's a little bit of a earth element to it. So it's actually water plus earth. And this is actually called Lady in the Lake. So, and the challenge with this one is because earth hands tend to like to do stuff. They tend to be very physical, like to kind of use their hands. That with the emotion, so it's the emotional stuff can actually become more visible. And the challenge with the Lady in the Lake hand shape is that relationships can be very, because when you mix water with earth, you get mud, right? So it can kind of equate into some sort of like a unclarity, muddy waters. So on the plus side, Lady in the Lake, this hand type is very nurturing and caring. It's like these are like good hand shapes for like nurses, body workers, massage therapists, like a blues musician. It's like the emotions are really felt in the body. Gardener at the convent. So there's all this like motherly energy. It's all this emotion about kind of taking care of people. But the challenge is they can make these gigantic messes in relationships. The tendency with the Lady in the Lake hand shape is the difficult relationships is because they choose difficult partners. So a lot depends on their partner that they choose. And, it's not easy to always get clear. They tend to surround themselves, with very challenging partners. And, it's like they're very nurturing. You're a very nurturing person. How it's very hard for you to live on this noisy, uncaring planet. You guys want to make the world a better place. You want to be spiritual people. You want to nurture. But like this planet is so the opposite of that. So the challenge, because you're water and earth, is, you don't have the fire. The fire and the air are kind of missing. So it's like, how can you kind of muster the energy to kind of do something, to channel that energy? Because mudslide, right? Mudslide is kind of like the exalted form of this hand shape. It's where that energy, that mudslide energy is like powerful, right? Nothing can stop. Mudslides can take out whole villages, right? So it's like, can you muster the energy? Can you show yourself to the world? Can you make smart decisions in relationships? And the thumbness, getting things under your thumb tends to be a challenge with this hand type. You're also in school of service. You have, let's see, what are your prints? You have pretty much all worlds except for your left thumb. So you have So you have 8 whirls, and whirls are all about service. So now I went from hand shape, which is personality, kind of the outline of your personality, to kind of the backdrop of your life. So this is soul psychology now. This is something that's not going to change. This is going to always affect your life. And so service, it's the whole objective of being in school of service is to become a master of service consciousness. So basically knowing when and when not to do for others. That is the curse and the gift of school of service. So, doing something for others kind of comes from a place of wanting to help them, not controlling them. It's a place of where you can empower both the giver and the receiver, and it's going to feel good. You don't have to feel like there's strings attached. The reward is in and of itself. You don't have to, feel obligated. Knowing that you've contributed, that you've made the world a better place is going to bring about life satisfaction. So there's not one major incident in your life that doesn't revolve around service or issues of service. And it's always about seeing yourself as the causative agent in the story rather than the victim. So how did you create this in order to learn more about service consciousness? So on one extreme, school of service is about the self-absorbed side, the selfishness side. And on the other extreme side is the, doing everything for everyone, no matter what. And so that kind of goes into obligation, where you feel obligated. Okay, I'll help you. Sure, I'll do this for you. Okay, I'll do this. Okay, yeah, I'll let you live in my room. Okay, yeah, I'll let you do this. So you have to kind of experience every kind of increment on that scale of service. And, if it's in your hands, it's in your life. So, you could be living with someone who's super self-indulgent. You could be, the martyr do-gooder somewhere in your life. Or you could have been that person in school that wanted to get the approval points from your teacher. So, it can show up as too much or too little in various areas of your life. So the whole thing is being able to say yes or no to requests, taking your own needs as well as the other person's needs into account. And you're able to renegotiate circumstances if you want. And the reward, the feeling of satisfaction, doesn't come from the other person's reactions. It's because of doing it for someone else.
It's like ideological, right?
What do you mean ideological?
Like you're serving in line with your values?
So it's like service, like it could mean like helping someone move. It could mean helping someone push a button at a stop sign, babysitting someone, or taking over a job for someone. Service means doing, when to do for others and when not to do for others. So an example that I had was my friend that had asked me to copy papers and mail them for her, and I said no, I couldn't do it just because of my schedule. Had you asked me a week earlier, I could have done it. And then she got angry at me because I said no to her request. So, I had to ask myself, is it good for me that I say no? Is it good for her if I say yes? Would I be enabling her? Maybe she needs to reach out to others. Maybe she needs to ask for help from other people. So, it's always asking yourself, is it good for you? Is it good for them? Do you really want to do it? And why? If, that'd be the next question. Okay, so yeah, service-based. You are in school service. I'm actually in school of service too. So it's the curse of school of service. And coming from an Asian family, where it's always like, you're so selfish. All you think about is your music. That's a big thing in my life that I've had to grapple with. So, okay. So if someone says, oh, you're being selfish, all you think about is yourself, or all you think about is your blah, 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 blah. That's school of service.
It's because you told them no.
Right, because people aren't used to being told no. But, if you overextend yourself and you expect other to overextend, it's like, where's the boundaries in that? Service shouldn't be about obligation. It should be about, oh, I want to help you because it's gonna help me feel good. Versus, oh, I'm gonna help this girl carry her stuff and maybe I can hook up with her at the end of the date or whatever. That's like service, right? That's expectation, right? The story of Bob, he helps Miss America carry her bag up the hill, and then when he goes up the hill, he gives her back the bag, and she's kissing her boyfriend, and Bob feels deceived. But Had Bob been up front and been like, oh, hey, Miss America, I think you're beautiful. Can we go get some coffee? He would have been more upfront about expectations rather than you deeming what he did was a service in expecting her to get with him. So,
exactly.
So, okay, now we're going to get into life lesson stuff. This is the kind of juicy stuff. Should I go life lesson first or should I go with life purpose?
Either one.
I want to talk about life lesson stuff because it's usually kind of more challenging to deal with, and then we'll do life purpose. Sure. Okay, so your life lesson is left thumb. So this is kind of like, has to do with family community issues out of sync. It has to do with, either you have to you can be yourself, and not feel part of the family, not feel part of the community, or you have to give in and conform in order to feel like you are accepted into the family or community. Community, family, it could mean a group of friends, it could mean school, it could mean, any sort of group of people. So basically trying to, an example would be trying to connect with family and feeling like you're unseen or underappreciated. But recognizing, why can't people accept me as I am? Grappling with that state of consciousness where you feel like you're not accepted in groups or in family. This life lesson is a tricky one because it asks you have to create, you have to, find an appropriate family and community connection. So sometimes overdoing it, can show up as like trying to escape an abusive family environment, either at home or work, or, you have a controlling family or community that has taken over your life. Or you're constantly sacrificing the needs for the family at your own expense. Right. And the other extreme with that would be like you're the lone wolf with no family or community connection at all, or you have no like-minded support connection, or you find it hard to take care of yourself. Self-care is a big part of this life lesson as well. So, on one extreme, it's like you sell out. On the other extreme, you conform. So the goal or the aim is to kind of be right in the middle where you have created your own family and community connection, and you don't have to sell out or be the lone wolf in order to have this connection. But this connection is going to be very important. So like an ideal circumstance would be like you're a marriage and family counselor, kind of using your own difficult experiences to help others who are kind of facing the same thing. Or this is also like where you can become a mom, you become a parent. And your role as mom, as a nurturing person, you have your family that you've created and that gives you joy. Okay? Mm-hmm. Another part of the life, actually okay. Let's talk about this. You have both the whirl, which is your highest ranking print, and you have a loop, which is your lowest ranking print in the moon. So you have life purpose and life lesson in the moon, and the moon is all about spiritual teacher. But when it's life lesson stuff as well, it's spirituality and the family is also part of the life lesson. So there's gonna be like this push me, pull you energy. I'm gonna lead into your life purpose. You have the spiritual teacher life purpose plus right Jupiter, right Saturn, right Apollo, leadership, business, money plus spotlight. So that's like leader of spiritual business in spotlight. This is kind of like the healing artist tycoon in the spotlight. This is like Tony Robbins, So the challenge is that it has this push me, pull you energy because both your life purpose and your life lesson are in the same realm, making it really tricky. So it kind of acts like a what we call like a composite in the moon, which has like the ability to turn on and off. And the name for this is Rabbi Owns a Ranch. Okay?
On the ranch.
So it's like there's this push me pull you about this relationship with material goods and money and spirituality. You know, in the spiritual realm, you're not supposed to have money, you're not supposed to have material goods. But on the other end, it's like Rabbi owns a ranch. You are allowed to have money and stuff. And I think that's the biggest misconception, is that you've probably been told that, you know, it's not spiritual to have stuff. It's not spiritual to have money. And actually, your life purpose actually says you're supposed to have a lot of money and you can have stuff. And you're supposed to enjoy material stuff. So it's basically a breaking through the limits of what a spiritual teacher can have and can do and can be. You know, the rabbi, he's a rabbi during the day and he tends to his ranch during the night. You know, he has kind of two different lives in a way. But that's that same kind of dynamic that's possible with this moon marker. That's your life purpose and your life lesson. So it has this constant push me, pull you energy to it. But yeah, you're part of the lesson here is to be able to have stuff, material stuff, goods. You don't have to deny yourself of, you know, it doesn't need to be this materialistic celibacy or, you know, fear around stuff and money, because that's your life purpose is about having lots of money. That's like part of a state of consciousness that's going to make you happy. And the spiritual teacher, you know, like Tony Robbins, he tours around and makes millions and millions of dollars, you know, espousing his philosophies about life. And, you know, you're here to learn about how to marry this kind of materialism with spirituality and also, you know, sensuality, getting in your body. The left thumb also has to do with self-care. So using your money, using your material stuff for self-care, taking care of yourself. You know, people think that like, oh, you're spiritual, you shouldn't be having all this stuff. But that's not your picture. That's very opposite of your picture. You're supposed to have lots of stuff. You're supposed to have lots of money. You're supposed to enjoy your material goods. That's part of who you are. So do you see this kind of like push me, pull you energy of the moon? How it kind of, it's a delicious dichotomy, actually. Delicious dilemma. Yeah, when I combine that, you know, it's like, how can you find your community, find your family that will support you in this life purpose, you know, as the leader of spiritual business in spotlight, you know, this kind of Tony Robbins figure. How can you allow yourself to be okay to have lots of material goods and money? You know, there's usually two ways this kind of manifests. Usually on one cycle, the person usually gets rid of everything they own, or they'll have their stuff but not do anything with it because they're not supposed to have it. So you need to be enjoying your stuff. It's okay to have stuff. It's okay to have material goods. This is part of your life purpose. So just be aware of that. Just be aware of the push me, pull you energy around spiritual teacher and stuff and money. You're supposed to have both, basically. Now, there's some life purposes that, you know, it's supposed to not be stuff related. In this case, you're meant to have stuff, money, and the spiritual realm. And it's how can you put yourself out there in the world. You know, the part of the you know, kind of the life lesson stuff, you know, if you're not doing your life purpose, it's going to show up as the inverse, you know. So if it's out of integrity, if you're not doing the spiritual teacher stuff, it's going to show up as, you know, relationship drama, family community issues out of sync. It's going to show up as everything in the inverse if you're not making the leader of spiritual business in the spotlight as kind of like your main force. So I'm also looking at some composites that you have. You have a left Mercury composite. Composites are a type of fingerprint that tend to turn on and off. So if it's on, then it's all is good. If it's off, then the lesson end of whatever finger it's on is going to show up. So if you're in your life lesson, and remember there's going to be a lot of on-off stuff, back and forth stuff, just because of this, the energy of the composite. So if it's in the off, it's in the lesson. And left Mercury has to do with like relationship issues, trust and surrender issues. And this can usually show up as, abandonment, absent daddy syndrome, manipulation, codependency, intimacy issues. So either on one end being too mistrustful in relationship or manipulating people to get your way or having to win every argument. And on the other end, you're kind of ignoring your inner alarm that warns you shouldn't trust this person, or you'll withdraw if you don't get your way, or you'll abandon yourself in personal relationships. So the just right in the middle is kind of like it would be like you being like a well-respected therapist or counselor, where you're able to kind of have that compass of your inner alarm in regards to relationship. But because your left Mercury and the Lady in the Lake are both, they're designed to make relationships a lot more difficult than the other hand archetypes. Their challenges in the relationship realm are going to be kind of at the center, just because it's kind of like a double whammy. So just being aware of that. There is, when I do look at your hand, you have a cosmic staircase, which is a kind of a cool thing, kind of a pointy Mercury finger and also the Jupiter finger. So basically you need a spiritually based partner. That's going to be key for picking ideal or picking compatible partners. Because a lot of the messy relationship stuff depends on who you choose as a partner. But this basically in your hand is saying you need a spiritually based partner that's going to be there with you, that's going to experience all the moony stuff with you. Otherwise you're not going to feel like they really see you or they're really present with you. You also have a right thumb composite, and that's kind of like feast, famine. So same thing, it kind of blinks on and off. Feast and famine, you can go from results, lots of results in the world, lots of money, to, okay, no work, no job, no money, no home. So it's like results, success, failure, and it can blink on and off, kind of based on your life lesson, basically. There is I'm looking at your lifeline. Your lifeline doesn't represent how long you're going to live, but it tells you kind of like your anchor, your physical constitution. Usually when it's kind of glitchy like this, it can be what we call a little archy. So on one end, it could be, running to do like a million things at once, like Mr. Sticks and Plates, where they're kind of trying to spin each plate on each stick, like 14 plates and sticks going on at once. It's like balancing 14 different things at once. And everything's like this giant adrenaline rush of one thing after another. I have to do this, and there's no peace in my life. I cannot be in my body because everything's gonna come crashing down. And on the other end is where they drugs and alcohol, they check out, like my daughter was abducted by aliens, you're told, and you're like, oh, that's nice, whatever. So seeing where you are on that spectrum of the archiness, because the lifeline is kind of like your grounding cord. It's kind of like your physical constitution. And sometimes when there's breaks, it can show up as difficult circumstance as a kid, like where you had to grow up. Either a death in the family when you were really young, or like one person I read that had this similar kind of thing. He almost died from a heroin overdose. So it can show up as having to grow up, or kind of a life-death, kind of like you become adult when you're like 10 years old, kind of a thing.
Right.
And so your headlines are kind of interesting too, because the right hand, you have a very long, straight headline, flat headline. And the hand is all about your watery hand is all about emotions and the intuition. And the headline is kind of like your brain, your thinking system. And when one is very logical and linear, it can show up as, trying to get into the head instead of the feelings, trying to overanalyze what you're feeling in order to not feel the feelings. But as the spiritual teacher, tycoon, business person in the spotlight, you are actually meant to suffer a crisis of meaning. You are meant to kind of be down in the deep emotions, because that's where you're going to learn how to help others when they're in that sort of situation. Have you noticed that every example I gave you is like therapist or counselor, or, stuff like that? So it's kind of like your hand is kind of radiating like spiritual teacher in the big spotlight. So kind of Tony Robbins, big spotlight. So let me kind of wrap this up. So when I look at your hands, it's very watery, earth, lady in the lake, working with your hands, very nurturing energy. Being such a spiritual, idealistic, sensitive person, it's very hard for you guys to live in this noisy, chaotic world, because this planet is very uncaring, and you tend to be the very nurturing person that wants to take care of people. And it can be very conflicted combo, because it can also it can kind of create lots of difficult relationships, and a lot of that depends on you. Can you choose a relationship, a partner, that because you have the cosmic staircase, can you choose a partner that's also spiritually based? And the challenges are going to be, can you muster the energy to put yourself out there in the world? Can you show up in the world? Do you have thumbness? Thumbness is about doing, because there's all this spiritual energy, all this emotional energy, but can you actually put yourself out there in the world without the fire element? And being school of service, knowing when to do for others. So because Lady in the Lake is such a caring hand shape, it's like, oh, I'll take care of you, I'll take in all the wounded cats, dogs, and animals, and you like that connection. And service is all about knowing your boundaries, knowing when to say no, when to say yes, instead of going into obligation of like, sure, I'll do this for you, sure, yes. But having strong boundaries so that you can take care of yourself, because your life lesson is left thumb, and it can be easy to fall into the trap of obligation in order to fit in somewhere. Okay, I'll do this because if I say no, or if I choose not to do this, then maybe they won't accept me. So that's a delicious dilemma right there, is knowing when to do for others, and creating your own kind of family group dynamic where you feel heard, you feel appreciated. You don't have to sell out, you don't have to conform, but you can be your true self, and you're rewarded for being yourself. And stepping up into your life purpose as the leader of business, leader in a spiritual business in the spotlight, kind of this tycoon, healer, artist in the spotlight, and designing your life around being able to kind of give psychological insight, to help people guide their lives, be a counselor type, be a Persephone type. So, and with the composite, the kind of the whirl and the loop in the moon, you have this push me, pull you with, it being your life purpose and your life lesson. So Rabbi in the Ranch is also part of your life purpose. So you're a spiritual teacher, and you can make lots of money, and you can have lots of stuff, and you can enjoy all of that. It doesn't have to be one or the other. You don't have to purge your stuff. You don't have to avoid stuff or money. It's what you need to do as part of your life purpose in order to feel like you're living on track. But part of that is also self-care. So, you're having all this stuff, having this money, but can you enjoy it? Can you allow yourself to be around it, rather than kind of creating this self-denial of like, oh, I can't have that. I can't give to myself. You're meant to give to yourself. You're meant to enjoy your stuff. What's the purpose of having money and stuff and materialistic stuff if you can't enjoy it? So that's another part of your life purpose. Just knowing that when you have the composite's turned off, your left Mercury, it can show up as relationship trouble. So that's kind of a similar thing, as relationships are going to be very dependent on which partner you choose. So ideally it would be someone who's spiritually based, but being a lady in the lake person, it's like you can get really swallowed up in the emotional aspects, and then with the straight headline, overanalyzing the emotions to the point of where it just kind of takes over your life, and then you end up in the life lesson aspect of it. So, any questions so far?
No, I'm just kind of taking it all in.
Okay, cool. So I'm going to give you next...
The video was cutting him out a little.
Oh, it was?
Okay. I'll watch it later.
Okay.
Oh, just on my end. But I can watch it later.
Okay, cool. Okay, cool. So let me give you a next step. All right, so I see your next step as a red, and I'm just seeing like taking like a bath, a candlelit bath, and just like listening to music, like really saying hello to your body, saying hello to self-care, and taking a break from the noisy planet that you're living on in order to give to yourself and replenish yourself. Cool. All right, Sarah, we'll call that a reading, okay? So I'll upload your reading.
That's great.